So I recently found out that Sword Art Online 2 has come out in America, and the first three episodes of it, it's an anime show about well, it's not about one thing really. I mean, it's pretty much about this dude who's really into virtual reality video gaming, and he gets into a bunch of shenanigans with that. And the first season was a very mixed bag. I liked the first half. I hated the second half. I mean, I could go on for hours about all the good points and bad points of it, but I'm not going to. But just suffice it to say that it did some things very well and some things very bad, and it took a nosedive of epic proportions, like biblical proportions, that I have never seen before in a show ever in the second half. After episode 14, they pretty much changed seasons. They didn't call it a season change, but it pretty much was, and it was completely retarded. But so anyways, Sword Art Online 2, I watched the first episode of it, and it actually looked pretty good. It could be good. See, I mean, this is kind of hard to explain without explaining the entirety of the show, really. I mean, because the only way that this is going to succeed is if they learn from the lessons of the failure of the second half of the first season. So I'm just going to go through it, explain a little bit of what the first season was like, and then I'll explain my thoughts on Sword Art Online 2. For those of you, if you're watching this and you have no clue what I'm talking about, I mean, I'm sure if you've seen it, you would know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so Sword Art Online starts out with this extreme nerd who named Kirigaya Kazuto, who spends pretty much every waking hour of his life inside playing virtual reality video games. Like full dive virtual reality video games, they call it. He uses this thing called a nerve gear. It's a headset, pretty much. You put it on your head, and it sends you into the game, pretty much. It's like Tron. And uh, in other words, he's a complete loser. But so, well, that's not what they want you to think. But anyway, so he was a beta tester for this new game called Sword Art Online, and all the nerds everywhere are having orgasms because it's finally coming out. So Sword Art Online comes out, 10,000 people get in because they only released 10,000 copies, which right there should be a red flag. But anyways, so they go in, everyone's having a wonderful time playing Sword Art Online until they realize something's wrong. Who knew? Maybe that's why they only released 10,000 copies. So as it would turn out, the creator of the game, Kayaba Akihiko, has trapped them inside the game world, and the real stinger is if they die in real life, and they cannot escape the game unless they beat all 100 floors. So they all 100 levels pretty much. So that in and of itself is a great concept for an anime sort of, because you could go anywhere with that. I mean, it's just so broad what you could do with it. You could make it a deep story-driven anime. You could make it a long Dragon Ball Z anime. I personally would like the more Dragon Ball Z style where there's like a million episodes because that would suit it better just because of the scope of it. But the first season of Sword Art Online was a very mixed bag. It it had good things and bad things. Some of the good things it had very good action and very it had not it had horrible characters pretty much. I mean, except for Asuna and Kirito, the two main leads, he meets a girl named Asuna and they fall in love inside the game or whatever. There's maybe one discussion about how that might be a little bit weird falling in love inside a video game, but anyways, um there were a lot of problems, a lot of good things, but in the end I found it to be very entertaining. So anyways, Kirito eventually escapes the game only to find out that the girl that he fell in love with, Asuna, is still trapped in the nerve gear. 300 people did not wake up. So he finds out that she's in another game. And this is at episode 14, by the way. Episode 14, he escapes Sword Art Online. Episode 15, he finds out that she's still trapped in a different video game called Alfhiem Online, which is about fairies and things. And so he goes in to go rescue Asuna, which might be kind of interesting, except for one major problem. This is a perfectly functioning MMO. You can log out, it's all fine. Kirito logs out several times, and yet the people playing this are like so nerdy. It's not like so they're having these complex like political struggles and warfare and things inside this game, and it's retarded because the whole time you can't help but think, like, how nerdy and how little life must these people have that they are constantly on this game scheming to take over a country that doesn't even exist and it's inside of a game. But so anyways, a few key major differences in Alfheim Online is that they're fairies, they can fly, and they have a magic system. Unfortunately, the magic system, which looked very promising and awesome, is pretty much never used. I think they use it all of like twice. Kirito uses it all of twice. Everyone else uses I think that a few of the side characters use it. That's one of the problems with Sword Art Online, is that the side characters get absolutely no development whatsoever. Each of them gets like an episode apiece, and that's about it. And every single female side character falls in love with Kirito about 5 seconds after meeting him, which doesn't really make any sense considering how he's such a loser. But anyways, so Kirito rescues Asuna and gets out of it, and that whole part of it, Alfheim Online, that segment was awful. The reason being that it took itself way too seriously. It was way too short, way too short. The original Sword Art Online was too short, and that one had 14 episodes. Now, Alfheim Online only had 10 episodes, and yet it tried to tell a much more complex story. How does that make any sense? With Sword Art Online, it was 14 episodes to tell a fairly simple story. You've got 10,000 people trying to get to the top of a tower. With Alfheim Online, it's 10 episodes trying to tell this big, massive story about evil government experiments and crap, which was completely retarded. One of the main problems with Sword Art Online was that the whole time it took itself way too seriously. Way too seriously. Like, it it wanted to be the story-driven adventure anime when it should have been the light-hearted adventure anime, like Dragon Ball Z. If it was like that and it was just 300 episodes of random adventures per one episode of actual story, it would have been beautiful. It would have been awesome, because then A, you would have had more time to develop the characters, and you would have gotten more action, which is what we needed. Kirito had absolutely no character development. He was just the badass dude who wears black, and that somehow makes him more badass. But so, I was depressed, because I liked the first half. Then they came out with the second half, and it's like, please just let the franchise die. And then I learned that there is GunGale Online, which is Sword Art Online 2. So I'm gonna go through the story of pretty much the first episode. So it opens up with so this is a little rusty because I watched it like a day ago, but so it opens up with this game called GunGale Online, which is like Sword Art Online but with guns. So that's actually a pretty decent idea. So on the like in-game TVs, there's this dude talking and he's like bragging about his skill sets or something, I don't know. But so this dude in a metal suit, kind of like a metal mask, he kind of looks like Doctor Doom, comes up, shouts something about justice, shoots the TV, and then like 5 seconds later the dude dies of a heart attack, like in real life. So then that happens to like two other people, which is really weird. So this government dude who happens to know Kirito, because Kirito got like investigated and questioned and stuff because he was a dude who beat Sword Art Online, so he's probably a bit of a celebrity. And they and he asks him, hey, he pretty much says to him, hey, can you go get shot by this Doctor Doom guy so that we can tell if you die in real life or not? That's kind of what he told him or asked him or hinted at. So Kirito is kind of contemplating going into this game. Meanwhile, he's kind of talking with Asuna. They have some interaction. That was one of the strong points of the series in general, was whenever Kirito and Asuna were allowed to interact with each other, it did seem to work out pretty well. I mean, she wasn't like a very original character or anything. She was very stereotypical and didn't have a lot of development, but whenever they were together, like doing something, it was very entertaining to watch, mainly because that is one of the things that Sword Art Online did very well, and one of the things that I wish it had more of. But so they like talk to each other, and I don't know, they're just kind of in the real world or whatever. They're talking about some sort of data difference between a virtual world and a video game world. But so at the very end of the episode, we get this actually quite badass scene with a sniper inside GunGale Online, and she's with like a group of people, and they're gonna like ambush a convoy or something, and then she takes a shot, gets a headshot on someone, and then it's over. And that was the first episode of GunGale Online. So I believe that this could be very good if it does everything in its power to stay as unlike Alfheim Online as possible. Alfheim Online focused way too much on the game and took itself way too seriously. So GunGale Online should focus more on the real world, focus on how Kirito is adjusting from having lived in a video game for like 2 years to going back into the real world. And then like just focusing on the real world, instead of focusing on the game, and maybe have the game be there. I mean, have the game be there, but whenever the game is there, make it like fun and have action and stuff. Don't make it there to be the main story. I mean, it can have a story and it can like I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. I'm just trying to say don't do what Alfheim Online did. Don't take yourself too seriously. Make everyone know that it's a video game. That's one of the things that they did very well was all of the logic in the games is like game logic. Like cooking in the game was actually one of the most interesting things ever because it's like cooking in a video game except it's also kind of like cooking in real life. It was kind of hilarious. But anyways, so be more like that. Like just show interesting things about your video game world. And then when you're not doing that, show Kirito dealing with PTSD or something. I would have PTSD if I had just finished a 2 year battle for survival only to go back into the real world and have like no clue how to use anything anymore because it'd been 2 years since I used a TV. I mean, that would be interesting. But so, GunGale Online shows promise. It could be good. Like I knew Alfheim Online was gonna be shitty from the second I started watching it. I was like, "Oh God, you're shitting me. This is gonna be horrible." But GunGale Online could be good, but it also could be horrible. It could be even worse than Alfheim Online. So I mean, if you saw Sword Art Online, then probably watch it. Um, I don't know if I would recommend watching all of Sword Art Online just to see this. I mean, you should probably watch Sword Art Online if you hadn't. It was very entertaining. That's the only thing that I can definitely say about it was it was definitely entertaining. There was never a moment in Sword Art Online where I was not entertained. And even if it was just laughing at how horrible it was, but so um I don't know about Gun Gale Online yet. I'm gonna like see as I go, watch the next 2 episodes and do some reviewing on that. So that's all, I guess.